Hi, and welcome to episode 4 of DisabilityIreland.com's new podcast. I want to start by thanking you all for the amazing responses and interest from our previous episodes. So keep your feedback and suggestions coming. We really do appreciate it. So let's get on with this week's show. On to this week's guest, Sinead Keane. She is one of our Twitter followers who's got in contact with us and after swapping a number of messages has agreed to come on and talk about her Aspergers. So welcome, Sinead.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No problem, Sinead. Sinead, I'll start off with giving what I believe is the definition of Asperger's, and then
Yeah,
you can perhaps give your understanding living with
yeah,
it, what it is. So my understanding of it is that it is a high functional form of autism spectrum
yeah,
disorder and affects the way a person understands other people, talks and acts with other people, and I suppose how a person makes sense of the world.
yeah.
Would that be a true reflection,
Yeah, I'd
or
say
how
that
do
would
you
be.
find it?
I I'd say the problem you have is when you go into, well, for me anyway, when you go into sort of new situations, social situations, you find it very hard to sort of pick up on other people's cues, and you sort of you think the worst,
Hmm.
and you sort of see things that other people mightn't be stressed out about. Like that's
Right.
what I
Okay.
think, and that's me. That's how it affects me personally.
Okay. And what age did you realize perhaps that, for the want of a better word, you were a little bit different to your fellow friends or classmates?
Well, when I went to secondary school at about 12, I found the transfer from a very, like, I was in a very small local primary school to a very big secondary school. I
Right.
found it really, really difficult,
Okay.
really difficult. And
And
it was like an alien concept to me. And being in such around so many people and not being in the same classroom for all day and having to go, for English in one place and geography in another place. And I started to, like, I think I gave my parents hell. Like, I really acted up
right.
really,
Okay.
really badly. And I think there was a thing like, what's wrong? Like, what's happened? And then my dad died very suddenly. And I
Okay.
think then it was put down to, well, your dad has died. You're very, very depressed because it wasn't expected.
Hmm.
And I was very I was we had to pay for it, which many people do, pay for a private assessment. My mum did, because there's the waiting lists are like still like so long, like nearly over 10 years later, are
Jeez.
so long. And I was diagnosed then about I was 15.
Okay. And what exactly is the diagnosis? How do they determine that you have this?
I did an educational assessment with a private psychologist because I was forwarded by my GP to the public, but I think there was a waiting list of something. I think it was over a year.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and we
So
had to go private,
okay.
and I was diagnosed that way, which
Okay.
in a way was relief to me. But I think like 10 years ago, like I think it was still like, even autism, it wasn't really talked about at
No.
all.
And of course there's some very high profile people in the world that
Yeah,
have a form of this. I think Anthony Hopkins has it, Susan
yeah,
Boyle, of course the one in the news recently, Greta Thunberg, the
Thunberg.
16-year-old Swedish environmental activist who was at
Yeah.
the recent UN summit. So would Greta Thunberg, would that be, you think, a good summary of what somebody is like, I guess, with Asperger's, or
For me, she would be, but I
okay.
think the barrage of negativity that she gets from people has a lot to do with her diagnosis.
Hmm.
And it's put down to, well, she has Asperger's, therefore she doesn't see anything else in the world. What else goes on? She's a one-track mind,
Hmm.
which I disagree with. But I think she's a great role model. Like, I would have loved to have her as somebody when I was 16.
to look up to. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it is obviously quite a, I guess maybe a surprisingly high amount. I reckon there's what 37.30 million people in a recent
yeah,
2015 survey had it, and in Ireland, I believe it's 1 in 65 people who
I
suffer
know it's
from.
very high.
Yeah, it is. I guess it is it's a syndrome that we've all heard of, but I guess the public at large don't really understand. So
Yeah,
hopefully from yourself, Sinead, this will be an education for everybody,
yeah,
including myself. Um, so going back to your school experience, you went from a small village or small town to the big school.
yeah.
Like when you moved to the big school, was there some friends came with you, or was that large part of the problem that you didn't have that small network of friends
There was a
that you had at
few that
primary?
transferred from primary to the secondary school, but I think there was only like about 150 people in our primary school.
Right. Okay.
Everybody knew each other, like even all the teachers, and like the principal knew you by first name. Like the
Hmm.
principal used to stand by the door every morning when everybody came in, and then you went to this like vast place, and
Hmm.
it was like I was only just 12 when I went, and I think my mum and dad thought, well, maybe she's too young. We should have like she should have gone in at 13. That it
Hmm.
was that, but I don't think it was. I think it was like, as I've read now about Asperger's, I think it was the onset of puberty, which is when most people the symptoms start to show themselves. I think that's what happened, and I think the sort of the change of the school was sort of a catalyst for it to show itself more than it would have if I was in a smaller
Okay.
secondary.
Okay. So I guess if you had to get the bus in the morning to go to the bigger school, the secondary school, like would that have been a time of stress for yourself, or what did you
Yeah,
find was the most stressful element of
I
school?
think the mornings when before I used to go to school, like I think back at it now, and I think like it must have been like hell for my parents, because I'd say, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I'm not going. Like I remember we were driving down, my mom was driving me to school down this really busy road, and I remember I physically tried to get out of the car because I
Right.
didn't want to go, and I consciously I didn't realize there was a risk of traffic coming. I could get killed. I could kill the mom could crash the car or
Mm.
something. Like it was just a dread and a fear. Like it was like all of that's something like it's like there was like the bogeyman at the end of the bed or something, and something bad was going to happen,
Right.
and I
Okay.
couldn't really verbalize that what it
Okay.
was.
So my understanding as well that you people who have it have particular rituals or obsessions. Would this be something that you would have yourself?
I'd be very like I'd be very OCD with sort of things like I'd have to have things, everything would have to be even, and everything would have to be in a certain way, and I'd have to like if I get dressed in the morning, I have to dress in a certain way. If I
Right.
don't get dressed in a certain way, I'd think something like disastrously bad is going to happen.
Right.
That'd
Okay.
be me now.
And would this, as the rituals or the obsessions, as this developed over time, or have you outgrew some of these and replaced them with new rituals or new obsessions?
I think I've been very lucky that I've a very good psychiatrist that I've been with for a number of years, who I can talk to about things.
Hmm.
And sort of I've like 5 years ago, I would 6 years ago, I would have taken things very to extreme. Like I sometimes I'd be afraid like to go outside the house because I thought think something bad would happen. And
Okay.
there'd be this overwhelming fear of dread, which I think with the support network that I have has made things diminish like over the past 5 years a great deal.
Hmm. Okay. And just going back to the rituals, obsessions, you know, as opposed to the negative connotations about it.
Yeah.
Has there been any benefits that you have found from it? I don't know, perhaps in study, very focused, or
Yeah. I think I'd be very like I'd be very good at certain things. Like if I want to do something, like I'd be very good at history and English.
okay,
I do it, and I did very well in them because like I'd say, well, I want to do this and I'll do it, and you're like determined to do it. I think
okay,
that's a good thing, like to have determination
yeah.
about something is good. Like it doesn't make you waver from things.
No, no, it sounds, yeah, it could be beneficial at times for sure.
Yeah.
So as well as rituals, my understanding is there's also usually a sensitivity to light or sound. Do you have
Yeah.
any of these?
Mine would be sound. I hate loud noises like Halloween there last week. I hated like
Mhm.
the fireworks and stuff.
Okay,
It's just like it's like something is about to burst in your head. I know to other people it probably sounds, oh my god, like she's a bit, but it's like your head is about to explode if I hear loud bangs or things like that.
okay. And then what about going to a disco or into a pub? How's that? How?
I'd never go into places like I'd never go into, say, like now, Christmas shopping in town. I'd never go in at peak hours
Okay.
because it'd be like a sensory overload in a way
Hmm.
because you have everybody around you and like it's just, for me it's always too much.
Okay. So you just feel stressed out by the whole
Yeah.
environment. Okay. And then, as well as emotionally, what would you say are the most common misconceptions about someone with it? Like, I guess, can you, in relation to language, um, like, can you understand or emphasize or understand what people are saying if they're talking emotionally or reading body language, that type of thing?
To me, I think I'd be very bad at body language, picking up on, normal cues with people. That's what I'd be very bad at.
Okay. And I think that is quite a common symptom
Yeah.
of it with everybody. So we discussed about kind of being out in town or perhaps the school bus parties. Would that be more in a family setting you would be quite okay with, or if
I'd
you
be great. Yeah, I'd be great in family settings with people I know, like, and people I trust.
okay,
That's personally where I'd be more
okay.
comfortable with. I wouldn't be going into like somewhere where I wouldn't know anybody. I'd be petrified.
All right, okay. So in relation to the communication, obviously doing the podcast here,
Yeah.
this is it because it's in a one-to-one situation that you seem to be quite okay or stress-free, or are you hiding it very well?
I think there's probably a good degree, like you do tend to hide it, I suppose, as you get older. You do tend to hide it well. You do learn how to hide things. You sort of have a poker face, like you look one way, but you probably feel, deep down, you feel a different way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, okay. And then in relation to, without wanting to get personal, kind of relationships, have you found that a struggle or not
I
really?
think again, it's the trust thing. Like you find it very hard, and then like you think to yourself, like if somebody like picks up on something and they say, well, that doesn't think right, sit right with them, and then you
Mhm.
have to go into like a huge explanation. Well, I was diagnosed with such and such a thing, and
Yeah,
I think
just not.
it's a degree of fear.
Okay. So, what would you say is the most important advice as someone who has it, for our listeners, and how best could we put yourself, for example, at ease, or kind of what would be one of the reasons why you've come on to the podcast today, just to kind of promote or to discuss Asperger's?
I think people have to realize that people with Asperger's, they're the same as everybody else. They have the same problems, they have the same feelings. They just
Mhm.
probably see the world in a slightly different way than other people do, which I think is a good thing, because I don't think we should all be necessarily the exact same as each other.
Yeah.
I think there has to be a degree of, I think, if I was younger and I knew that it would get better as I get older, that would help me.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought, like, I got, when I was like 15, I thought, Christ, like, is this going to be like a forever? Like, if you have, and if you manage, and if you have the right support systems, I was very lucky that my mom fought for me to get the services I needed. And I don't think it should be the struggle that it is for people. But
Mm-hmm.
if you have people on your side, I do think it can help. And I
Okay.
think people just need to be more cognizant of the fact that, you know, people who are Asperger's are the same as everybody else.
Yeah, I totally agree. So just going back to I guess the treatment. I don't think there's no there's no cure or magic cure,
No,
is there?
no
And so it is a lifelong.
condition.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, how do you describe it? As a condition? As a syndrome? It's certainly not a disease, but yeah, it's a condition. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd call
So
it a condition.
okay, so it is. There's no like. Do you take any medicines, or is it all just talking to your psychologist and just being close to your friends and
A lot
family?
of it is talking therapies, and as I said, a lot of people with Asperger's will have a mental health component to it. I take antidepressants,
Okay.
like loads of people do. That's the only medication that I take.
Yeah, and in our one of our previous podcasts, yeah, we had a lady on who Teresa Cahill, who was a
Mm.
comedian, and yeah, she was disabled later in life, and yeah, she had the same stuff. She's on various different depression tablets or whatever. So yeah, it's certainly not it's a more common thing in society, and I guess I think our understanding is gradually getting a lot better.
Yeah.
Um, how do people get in contact with yourself?
I think my Twitter handle, I think it's at Sinead Keane. If they
Yeah,
if they want to, they can.
or is it Anya Sinead? I'm not too
Oh,
sure.
Anya Sinead, sorry. That shows you how much I know
Anya
about my Twitter.
So, Sinead, thank you very much. Considering everything we've talked about, I want to give you my deep thanks for coming on and I guess being so brave and coming on and talking about your condition. So, folks, there we have it. Another episode comes to an end. And again, thanks very much to Sinead for coming on, and hopefully she has give you all a better understanding of what it is to have Asperger's, and to you all again next week. Bye bye.